What's up? Welcome to the Thoughts of LAKOTA Soundman show. Some of this could be controversial. We're going to explain some issues. It's originally going to be just my thoughts only, but I decided to have members of the N.M.G crew today. Pretty sure you could all introduce yourselves and how the group first started.
Well, we're N.M.G, No More Games Entertainment. We're basically a kind of a record label, a roof over the head of reservation artists, Native American artists. We're looking to expand out into all fields, music, film, pretty much anything you think of in the entertainment industry. I'm Eric Reinfeldt here.
I'm Michael Waisbad.
Eric Longhill.
I'm Sheldon King. So we're just going to discuss some very important issues today. And one of the first issues is reservation education. What that means is that we're going to talk about the education on the reservation. Graduating, like, what are we going to do for the rest of our lives as a profession? Most of the time is like for basketball, to become a professional basketball player. They're not really focusing on like other things, like maybe a businessman, an entrepreneur, a musician, a director, a writer.
Well, I think like when it comes to the reservation education, a lot of hip-hop artists, big or small, major, independent, a lot of them do the whole either play basketball, do music, or kind of stuck doing monotonous, repetitive jobs.
They want to do the things that they want to do, but then somewhere along the line they kind of mess up. Like just something that they wanted to do at the time, but then they like change their mind, and then now they're stuck with like a dead end job. And some of them end up having kids. They're just stuck here on the reservation. Sometimes it's Rapid City,
yeah. And
like there's, you know, some of them are stuck up there, and then job resources around here on the reservation, especially, there's like no jobs whatsoever. You have to know someone on a personal level, like family wise, in order to get a job around here. It was a theory at first, but it was proven a fact.
There's a lot of people who even we grew up with where it's like they put so much focus on being an athlete, and that's not a bad thing. It's a very productive thing, whatever. But the thing about it is like they hope to take that dream to the next level. But the thing about it is the schools kind of unintentionally sabotage those dreams. The level of education isn't as high as it should be. And there's people complaining, parents complaining, students complaining. So the good teachers get fired, and they bring in the teachers who are easy because the kids are complaining about how the work is too hard. By doing that, by complying to the wishes of the parents and the students, they're bringing in teachers who don't really have that much experience as a teacher. As a result, we kind of get shot out of high school and into college not being ready. And a lot of us are like barely at like a 9th grade level when we graduate high school.
We started the cinematography program. It wasn't told to us. They didn't say, here, be in this program and see how far you get with, you know, they didn't tell us that at the beginning of it. It was our own idea, and we got our own funding for it. It wasn't handed to us. We had to work hard to get that. It was one of our friends, Joey Berryhill's, the main guy that thought of the whole thing, and then we kind of helped them organize the whole club. We're pretty much successful in that club, weren't we?
Yeah, back in high school, there's not many outlets, is there? Especially for guys like us, because we're not athletic people. Like you said, back in high school, guys who go to high school and girls, they put like emphasis on sports.
Yeah.
Like that's their kind of outlet, and their way of kind of venturing out into the world is they use sports.
Yeah.
But for guys like us, we created the cinematography club, and a lot of us we're big fans of movies, and we just figure, you know, it'd be cool to make little short films, stop motion films, and little things like that. And we went ahead and did it, and it turned out really good, and we were really successful in it.
We had to learn this all on our own. You know, now it's way better. Another thing about cinematography program is that when we started the whole club, we made a lot of funding for it. It was doing good, and then after we graduated high school, Michael and a few others took the liberty of going to each and every grades, you know, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors. I believe you asked them if they wanted to carry on the club.
Like, I remember me and Joey, we went and asked different kids on if they wanted to continue a cinematography club, because we established it at the Little One School.
Yeah.
And it got around, and people actually heard about the cinematography club. But we asked people when we were graduating if they wanted to carry on the cinematography club, you know, create little short films and little things like this, but nobody was interested in it.
All right. Moving on to our next issue is legalization of alcohol on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. These people are pushing for it because they were supposed to bring more money, get us out of poverty, because we're below the poverty line right now. The whole legalization of it wouldn't really help us that much, because you know what's going to happen is that we didn't get rid of, that contract that JFK warned the tribal council about back in 1950s, I believe. The tribe back then signed that contract. I'm not going to tell you what it is. If you're serious about getting this reservation on the right track, you should research it yourself and figure it out for yourself. When they signed that contract, it basically gave Washington State the authority to send in FBI, CIAs over, or they don't even need permission to go across the jurisdiction. They can just come in anytime they want. Because of them signing that contract, we're part of the government. So whatever we want, alcohol, anything like that, we have to go to Big Brother and Big Sister up in Washington and ask for permission. It can't be through the people, and not even a tribe can't do that because it has to be done in the federal court system. Congress, senators, FBI, CIA have to be present and they look over the issue and then see if they could come to a solution. Therefore, we're stuck wishing that alcohol could be legalized. We all seen the negative effects it has on our culture over here. I mean, a lot of things like abuse and child abuse, rape, families fighting another. They basically got the poor fighting the poor.
I think that we all kind of had our own personal bouts with alcohol, not through our own lives, but the people around us that we grew up with, that raised us, that really kind of shaped our lives. A lot of people we know and grew up with alcoholic families, and that's just kind of the way it is. What Sheldon said, a lot of rape, molestation, murder, child abuse, spouse abuse.
A lot of crime.
Yeah, a lot of crime.
People robbing other people to get money to buy liquor. We can't buy it around here, so the nearest place is like Nebraska.
Yeah.
So they have to go, White Clay.
Yeah, White Clay. About 5 miles out of Pine Ridge. So we have all these issues, and the issues that we deal with are kind of being eliminated today. But because a lot of people our age, our generation, grew up with alcoholic parents, they're kind of turned on to that. And there are a lot of kids from our generation who are drinking with their own family. And I'm not talking like recreationally, but there are people who are 22 drinking with their 44-year-old father and mother and just getting wasted. Fighting each other, yelling at each other, punching holes in the wall.
That is pretty true, and make it even more worse, there's also elders involved. I remember hearing a story about this one time, and this old lady congratulated her granddaughter for buying her 24-pack of Bud Light.
Yeah.
Dysfunctional reality that happens here on the reservation. They make it seem like it's okay, especially when there's elders like that involved. They make it seem like it's okay.
Yeah.
But that's just a small portion of them. Not all elders are like that. I honestly don't have anything against alcohol. I'm not saying oh, you shouldn't go out there, that's bad for you, that's a sin. Drink if you want, but drink responsibly, and don't try to force it onto other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if someone doesn't want to drink, you don't force it on them or put a cake down their throat or something. No, you don't do that. You gotta remember, this is treaty land. We didn't make the treaty. It was your government, the U.S. government, that made those treaties, and we just had to sign our names, with the X on it, and then agree with them. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones that thought of the treaty. What they're basically doing is think of the reservation as like a FEMA camp or a concentration camp. They're putting us here to see who's the most successful, and all the stuff we're given now for free, we didn't ask for it. They're the ones that gave it to us because it's a part of the plan. Kind of like the Joker and Batman. It's all part of the plan.
And the whole them setting stuff up for us with the commodities and the Indian Health Service, IHS. All of that kind of it's basically just a big trap where, because everything's handed to you for free,
it's handicap. It's like basically making us handicapped.
It's crippling us, and
we're dependent on it.
We depend on it, so we don't become productive. The only reason we need money, like actual cash, is for alcohol, materialistic stuff. Everything else is handed to us. So imagine somebody who spends their entire life having everything handed to them, going off to college and having to learn how to provide for themselves.
Our passion, our outlet, music, is our way of coping with these things like depression or things like this. If we're going through some troubles at home, I've been through my fair share of troubles, and all I have to do is just play some keys on my keyboard, and it helps me cope with it, and all my problems go away.
Next issue, legalization of marijuana on the reservation. That's just the same as alcohol, where we basically have to go up to Washington and ask permission. They can't just say, oh, you want this? Well, we'll give it to you. You can start growing it. What they have to look at is what's it going to do for the natives on the reservation? Is it going to help them? The way I look at it is, and I'm looking at it from both sides. I always look at things from both sides. And Yeah, marijuana is helpful. I don't think it should be given to the people. It should be given through like hospitals. If the doctor, feels that this person is okay, they're qualified for marijuana, then give it to them, but not too much, just the right amount.
In a way, it's kind of like reverse psychology. This is bad for you. You shouldn't do it.
And then you do it anyway.
Well,
because I started like at 12 and I stopped at 6.
Isn't that called the human factor? Because from birth all the way as you're growing up, it's shoved down your throat. These things are bad. These things are bad. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Yeah.
But you can turn a complete 180 and do them.
You go around the corner, there's a group of kids just sitting there smoking weed. You're like 10. You're like, oh, what's going on, guys? Whatever. It's recess. Yeah. Can I get a hit?
Get your weed. Alright, moving to our next issue here, dysfunctional relationships on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Ooh. In our group, there's 2 people in our group, me included, had their fair share of very dysfunctional relationships. I'm not gonna say any names. Not only dysfunctional, but abusive. Not just physical. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't healthy. The reason these things happen is because a lot of people on the reservation grow up with not only alcoholic parents, but abusive parents who abuse each other all their lives, all the child's life. A lot of people have memories of waking up in the middle of the night to their parents like throwing down, fist fighting sometimes, screaming, crying, cops called, neighbors waking up, everything.
Domestic violence.
These kids go through their entire lives seeing this abuse and seeing it in their household, but their parents never break up for a long period of time.
And that's called also Stockholm Syndrome. They could basically almost kill each other and they still love one another. Hit into you with a car, you stab one another, they shoot one another, and then they still go back to each other.
Yeah, they can't live without each other because they're dependent growing up. Seeing all this stuff, see your parents always coming back together. That, as a result, shows how dependent they are on each other. And it makes you think it's alright. So you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, oh, they went through all this trouble, they almost killed each other, and they're still together. And it makes you think that it's okay to be dependent. I know few people from this reservation who we grew up with that are independent, male and female. I was dependent. A lot of people are very dependent. They don't know how to handle themselves when they're alone. They need that companionship. They need somebody there. Boys, they have mommy issues, so they need that companionship that they're not getting from their mother. Girls have daddy issues, so they're looking for that companionship they can't get from their father. Cycling, returning the favor to each other, every generation, that's what they call it, breaking the cycle. You're not going anywhere.
And it happens on a daily basis. It never stops.
Exactly.
Both guys and girls develop a thing, called insecurity. The most common thing I see on a reservation. They get overprotective on their lover. If you don't answer their calls on time, they'll, when you come home to them, they'll yell at you and, basically try to kill you. That's like the most common thing I hear about around here.
Insecurities can drive you crazy. There was a point where I thought it was okay to be insecure, because that's what I grew up around. Like, oh, everybody else does it, why can't I? Everybody else is still together, why can't I? It's a common thing. I'm not alone. I wasn't alone in that situation. There are hundreds, there are thousands of people who grew up on reservations that have that same mentality where they think it's okay to be in abusive relationships. They think it's okay to get abused.
Because of that puppy love, I live with this girl and I stay with this girl. And let's say there's a dark side to her. Those things will, like the puppy love will wear off. Things will take a turn, south.
Our next issue here is native musical artists. Native and musical artists.
So much potential.
They're doing stuff with it.
How amazing would that be to just have a group of native artists from reservations be self-sufficient Native American musicians?
Coming out of high school, we met several rappers and singers, but they did nothing to progress that. Did little shows here and there thinking they're gonna get famous off of it, but they really didn't go anywhere. They're stuck. And then they try to use other people looking for a handout type of deal. How we do this, and I promise I will help you, make it to the mainstream world. To be honest, I don't even care about the whole mainstream world. I'd rather stay underground, keep quality and realness in my music as much as possible. It's better to be real than fake. Better, ugly truth than a sweet lie. And then some of them seem like they made it, but they actually didn't make it. Found a handout, someone to give it to them, and then somewhat famous, but not mainstream famous. They're not making it out there. And then if you listen to their music, it's not quality material. It's basically listening to a hip hop clone. Basically, they don't have their own material, they don't have their own style. And when it comes to artists, with me, it has to have a backstory to what they're doing, why did they call themselves that name, and what they represent, what is their message, what do they plan to do with their music, plan to do to influence their fans, something that is positive, because, there's way too much negative we've seen around here, and I think it's time for a change, for a positive change.
Like, as a producer, as a music producer, I try to get myself known around here locally. A lot of the local rappers ask me, like, hey man, you're gonna get me a beat, and sometimes like I procrastinate and I don't get around to making them one. But the thing is, when I do get started on one, I don't make 3, 5, 10 like within a week. I work on one and I focus all my time and energy on it. But whatever I create, the final product, whatever I make sure that I like it personally.
Like, even though we do help people with them, they don't really spread the word about us or get recognition for it, for helping them at least, mention the name of the guy who helped you with the beat.
Yeah, you don't know how much time and hours go into the things that we make.
It's not like loops or anything, like you could just throw it together and be like, done.
Everything that you hear, from the hi-hat to the snare, every little single thing within the beat, we crafted from the ground. So if you're gonna just take the beat and be like, all right, cool, good beat, and then use it, I mean, at least kind of acknowledge, that we produced it for you. But I like to think that I played a part in Big E playing the guitar, but I'm not sure if I did or not. I'm not sure if he wants to admit that.
A little bit. Anyways, Michael did have a hand in me buying an electric guitar, but I've actually wanted to play an electric guitar since I was maybe 10 years old. I've listened to a lot of rock. I listened to Metallica.
Next issue would be suicide rates. Well, we basically almost covered the whole thing with alcohol.
A lot of the people who kill themselves here, a majority of them are teenagers. Just exiting their teens pretty much. And there are a lot who are, like, I've heard of 11, 12-year-olds. They're still kids and they're supposed to be happy. They're supposed to be children and they're killing themselves. A lot of these kids, whenever they kill themselves, it isn't with a gun. So there's these trailers that the FEMA government bring to us, and I think they supply them to, I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this, small families just started at like mother, father, child. I've heard story of kids hanging themselves in those closets. Those closets are small. They get like a sweater or a belt or even a coat hanger. They hang it around their neck and they drop. And the thing about it is they want to die so bad that their knees can be touching the ground and they'll lift their legs off the ground just so they hang. Black out and die. That's how dire the situation is.
So, moving to our next issue here is embezzlement.
Okay, so the topic of embezzlement is somewhat controversial, actually.
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna name names, but there are certain people within our tribal government who are guilty of embezzlement.
Some people actually think it's okay, and then some of us know it's wrong, but then we don't take a stand of exposing these problems and the people who are involved in them and getting it sorted out professionally. It's a problem that's never been resolved throughout the years.
Embezzlement ends up happening is because the people who are let into our tribal government, a lot of them don't even have college degrees. A lot of them are family. Let your family in. Nepotism. And so you let your family in. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a degree. You're in a position of power. You could provide them the jobs or whatever. And they get in there and they're just messing everything up. They're in a position where they can take money and get away with it. They can write checks to themselves and then leave and no one will question it.
I guess we're signing off now. Those are all the issues today. Charlotte King, aka Lakota Samurai.
Thanks for watching. I'm Michael Laisman.
And Eric Randpelt here.
My name is Eric Wonehill, aka Ronin. Stay tuned. Subscribe to this channel.